The blizzard came out of nowhere, swallowing the highway in white fury under a pale daytime sky, the kind that makes noon feel like dusk. Snow slammed sideways, the wind howled like it had something personal to prove, and every mile marker disappeared into a blur. Inside a rattling 18-wheeler pushing through the storm, a tired man made a choice that would quietly change 2 lives forever. Before the story truly unfolds, take a second to pause right here. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the idea that small, human decisions can echo louder than power or money ever could, please like this video, comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel, Kindness Journal. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Caleb Rourke had been driving trucks for nearly 16 years, mostly during the day, chasing daylight as if it were a promise he still believed in. He was not a man of big dreams anymore, just steady ones. He wanted to finish his routes on time, keep his job, and make it home before dark whenever possible. The blizzard was not part of the plan. The weather report had promised light snow, nothing more than an inconvenience, but by early afternoon the road had become a white tunnel, visibility shrinking to almost nothing. Caleb's hands were stiff on the wheel, his shoulders aching, his eyes burning from concentration and lack of sleep. Money had been tight for years. His company had cut hours, raised expectations, and offered little sympathy. Caleb had learned to stay invisible, to do his work quietly and not complain. He was one late delivery away from a formal warning, one warning away from losing the only job that kept his small apartment warm and his fridge modestly full. Turning back was not an option. Stopping was not encouraged. But then he saw her. She was barely visible at first, a dark shape against the white chaos on the shoulder of the highway. A car sat half buried in snow, hazard lights blinking weakly in the storm. Caleb's first instinct was to keep driving. Company policy discouraged stopping, especially in dangerous conditions. He had a schedule, a load that mattered more to management than excuses. His foot hovered uncertainly over the brake as the truck rumbled past, his heart pounding louder than the engine. Then he saw movement. A person, waving an arm slowly, not frantically, but with the tired rhythm of someone who had been out there far too long. Daylight reflected off the snow, harsh and blinding, and Caleb felt something twist in his chest. He thought of his own mother years ago, stranded once on a back road, waiting hours for help that came too late to matter. He thought of how cold fear feels, how it creeps in quietly. He slowed the truck. Pulling over felt like defying gravity itself. The wind rocked the cab, snow piling instantly around the tires. Caleb climbed down, the cold slapping his face raw. The woman stood beside her car, coat dusted white, hair pulled back but already stiff with ice. She looked exhausted, eyes red not just from the cold but from holding herself together. She did not cry or plead. She simply looked at him with relief so pure it hurt to witness. Caleb waved her toward the truck, helping her climb up into the cab. Inside, the heater blasted blessed warmth, fogging the windshield. He handed her his spare gloves and a thermos of lukewarm coffee, embarrassed by how little he had but offering it anyway. She wrapped her hands around the cup like it was something sacred. The truck felt suddenly smaller, quieter, like a shelter carved out of chaos. They sat there as the blizzard raged on in daylight, snow still screaming past the windows. Caleb learned her name was Marin Vale, that she had been driving to a regional office meeting when the storm overtook her. Her phone had lost signal hours ago. Her car had slid, gently but helplessly, into the drift. She spoke calmly, but there was an edge of disbelief in her eyes, as if she still could not quite accept how fast things had gone wrong. Caleb told her about the road closures he had heard on the radio, about how it might be hours before plows reached this stretch. He offered the cab as shelter without hesitation, knowing full well that if dispatch found out, he would have explaining to do. But in that moment, the idea of leaving her there felt impossible. Outside, daylight dimmed further, snow thickening, the world reduced to wind and white. Time stretched strangely in the truck. The engine idled, steady and comforting. Marin's shivering slowly eased as warmth returned to her hands and face. She looked around the cab, noticing the worn seat, the faded photos taped near the dashboard, a small list of reminders scribbled on a notepad. Simple things. Human things. Caleb felt oddly exposed, as if his whole life were laid out in that cramped space. As hours passed, they spoke about ordinary things. Work. Long days. The quiet loneliness of constant responsibility. Marin listened with genuine attention as Caleb mentioned how hard it had become to keep up with company demands, how drivers were treated like numbers on a spreadsheet. He did not complain bitterly. He spoke with the tired honesty of someone who had accepted struggle as normal. Marin's expression shifted as she listened, her brow tightening slightly, as if she were seeing something she had not expected. The blizzard showed no sign of mercy, even in the daylight. Snow continued to pile high, the road invisible now. Caleb worried about fuel, about whether help would come before nightfall. Still, he stayed. When Marin apologized for the trouble, he shook his head, telling her that some things mattered more than schedules. He surprised himself by how easily the words came. Eventually, long after the sky should have brightened again but did not, the distant growl of heavy machinery cut through the wind. Snowplows emerged like slow, determined beasts, carving paths through the chaos. Relief washed over them both. Emergency responders checked on Marin, arranged for her car to be towed later, and confirmed the road would soon reopen for limited travel. Before she left, Marin thanked Caleb in a way that felt heavier than politeness. Her eyes lingered on his face, as if memorizing it. She asked for the name of the company he drove for, and he told her without thinking, just another fact in a long, difficult day. She nodded once, thoughtfully, and then she was gone, swallowed again by the storm and the machinery that had come too late to matter for fear, but not too late for safety. Caleb drove on when allowed, finishing his route well behind schedule. The reprimand came quickly. A warning, formal and cold, citing unauthorized delay. He read it silently in the break room days later, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. He said nothing in his defense. He never mentioned Marin. Kindness, he had learned, rarely counted as an acceptable reason. Weeks passed. Winter loosened its grip slowly, daylight stretching longer again. Caleb kept driving, kept showing up, kept his head down. Then one morning, during a mandatory daytime meeting that everyone dreaded, something unusual happened. Executives he had never seen in person stood at the front of the room. The air felt different, tense but expectant. A woman stepped forward, composed and unmistakably familiar. Marin Vale. Only now, she stood with confidence sharpened by authority, her presence commanding the room. She was introduced as the founder and majority owner of the company. The room went still. Marin spoke about numbers, about logistics, about safety. Then her tone changed. She talked about a blizzard, about being stranded in daylight on a forgotten stretch of highway. She talked about a driver who stopped when policy said not to, who offered warmth, shelter, and humanity without knowing who she was. She talked about what it meant to see a company not from the boardroom, but from the passenger seat of a cold, idling truck. Caleb felt his pulse roar in his ears. He stared at the floor, heat crawling up his neck. Marin announced sweeping changes. Revised safety policies that empowered drivers to help without fear of punishment. Improved scheduling, better support, real listening. She spoke of restoring dignity to the people who carried the company on their backs across long daylight roads. Then she looked directly at Caleb and thanked him by name, not as an example, but as a person. The warning was erased. More than that, Caleb was offered a new role helping train drivers in safety and emergency response, with hours that finally allowed him to breathe. He accepted quietly, overwhelmed, unsure how to hold gratitude that large. Life did not become perfect overnight. But it became lighter. Caleb still drove sometimes, still loved the open road in daylight, but now he carried a quiet certainty with him. That stopping had mattered. That doing the right thing, even unseen, had value beyond consequence. As this story draws close, take a moment with it. If this act of simple kindness, this reminder that humanity can ripple upward and outward, touched your heart in any way, please like, comment, and share this video. Your engagement helps stories like this reach people who may need them most. And just before we end, here's a special request. Comment below with a single word that this story left you feeling. One word is enough. Because sometimes, in the middle of a blizzard under a pale daytime sky, the smallest decision to care can change everything.